What if you could never escape your worst moment? Not as a memory, but as a prison. Imagine living through the same tragedy, the same horror, the same final seconds over and over again. Not once, not twice, but for years, decades. Some say forever. The cases you're about to hear aren't fiction. They're documented accounts of people who claim to be trapped in time itself, reliving their darkest moments on an endless loop. Let's begin. What if touching an old photograph could trap you inside someone else's death? Not as a dream, not as a memory, but as an experience so real that your body believes it's dying. This case is one of the most haunting we've ever documented, and once you hear it, you'll never look at an old photograph the same way again. Martin Schultz was an antique dealer living in Munich, Germany. For 40 years, he traveled to estate sales across Bavaria, buying furniture, jewelry, and forgotten relics from families clearing out their grandparents' homes. He was practical, skeptical. He never believed in ghosts or curses or anything beyond logic. That changed in the autumn of 2019. At a small estate sale in rural Bavaria, Martin discovered a collection belonging to a deceased Wehrmacht officer. Among the items was a damaged photograph, partially burned at the edges, showing a woman standing in a doorway. She appeared frozen mid-step, her face turned slightly toward the camera. Martin felt an inexplicable pull toward the image. Something about her eyes, something about the way she seemed to be looking directly at him across 8 decades. He purchased it for €12 and brought it home. That night, Martin experienced something impossible. He wasn't dreaming. He was there. Standing on a cobblestone street in wartime Germany, 1943, air raid sirens screamed overhead. The smell of smoke filled his lungs. Buildings crumbled around him. And then he saw her, the woman from the photograph, running toward him through the chaos, her mouth open in a scream he couldn't hear. A blinding flash, the ground shaking, the sensation of being torn apart from the inside. Martin woke up drenched in sweat, his throat raw from screaming. He told himself it was just a nightmare. But the next night, it happened again. Same street, same sirens, same woman, same explosion, same death. For 5 years now, Martin has experienced this bombing raid every single night. He's tried sleeping pills, therapy, hypnosis, even exorcism. Nothing works. Every time he closes his eyes, he's back in 1943, watching the woman run toward him, feeling the bomb tear through his body. Sleep specialists documented something extraordinary during these episodes. Martin's brain activity matches someone experiencing genuine physical trauma. His heart rate spikes. His cortisol surges. His body genuinely believes it is dying. Researchers who analyzed the photograph found something equally disturbing. The image contained electromagnetic readings that shouldn't exist in a photograph from the 1940s. One physicist described what he called temporal scarring, microscopic distortions in the emulsion, suggesting the photograph was present during an event of extreme energy release. Some theorists believe the image absorbed psychic residue, the emotional energy of the woman's final moments, imprinted like radiation. When Martin touched it, he became linked to that moment. Others propose something stranger. They believe the photograph contains a memory loop, a fragment of time playing eternally, and Martin accidentally stepped inside it. Here's what makes this case truly chilling. Martin still owns the photograph. He says he cannot bring himself to destroy it. When asked why, he gives the same answer every time. He believes the woman would be alone in her death if he did. So every night, Martin Schultz dies with a stranger. He feels the fire. He feels the collapse. He feels her terror become his own. And every morning, he wakes up in Munich, 80 years after the bombs stopped falling. Is Martin experiencing a glitch in time? Has he merged with a moment that refuses to end? Or is the woman reaching across decades, pulling him into her final seconds because she doesn't want to die alone? He doesn't know. He just knows that tonight, like every night, he'll close his eyes and find himself back on that street, back in the smoke, back in the fire, back in 1943. And trust me, that was only the beginning. The next case involves someone trapped in their own trauma, a woman who relives the same accident every night at the exact same time. And there's video footage. What if your body remembered a trauma so deeply that it forced you to relive it at the exact same moment every single night? Not your mind playing tricks, not a nightmare you can wake from. Your actual body seizing control, dragging you back to the worst seconds of your life, whether you want to go or not. Yuki Tanaka knows exactly what that feels like, and she's been living it for almost a decade. In March 2015, Yuki was an ordinary office worker in Tokyo. She worked long hours, took the last train home, lived a quiet and unremarkable life. On the night of March 14th, she was standing on the platform at Shibuya Station, exhausted after a 12-hour shift. The platform was crowded. She stood near the yellow safety line, scrolling through her phone, waiting for the 11:47 train. Then someone stumbled behind her. A chain reaction rippled through the crowd. Yuki felt a hand against her back, then nothing beneath her feet. She fell onto the tracks just as the train's headlights flooded her vision. Bystanders pulled her out with less than 2 seconds to spare. The train's brakes screamed. Yuki survived with a fractured wrist and minor cuts. Doctors said she was lucky. They had no idea what was coming. 3 months after the accident, Yuki's roommate called emergency services in a panic. At exactly 11:47 p.m., Yuki had frozen mid-sentence. Her body went completely rigid. Her eyes rolled back. Her breathing stopped. For 90 seconds, she didn't respond to anything. No sounds, no touch, no light. Then she gasped awake, screaming about trains and bright lights and the feeling of falling. It happened again the next night, and the next, and every night since. For 9 years now, Yuki Tanaka has relived her near-death experience at exactly 11:47 p.m. Not approximately, not around that time. Exactly. Her boyfriend installed security cameras to document the episodes. The footage is chilling. You can watch Yuki talking normally, then see her body snap rigid at precisely 11:47, her muscles locked, her face frozen in terror, her chest barely moving. 90 seconds later, she gasps back to awareness, drenched in sweat, heart pounding. Medical specialists measured her vitals during these episodes. What they found was impossible. Her heart rate, oxygen levels, and stress hormones matched the readings from her original accident, readings that were documented when paramedics treated her on the platform in 2015. Her body doesn't just remember the trauma, it recreates it. Every single night, Yuki's biology believes she is dying on those tracks. Japanese researchers developed a theory they call temporal cellular memory. They believe that moments of extreme trauma can imprint not just on the mind but on the body itself, specifically in the circadian rhythm. Yuki's cells remember the exact moment she almost died, and her entire system resets to that moment every 24 hours like clockwork. But others propose something far stranger. Some physicists believe that Yuki didn't just survive the accident. She created what they call a temporal echo. At the moment of maximum terror, her consciousness fractured, leaving a piece of itself trapped at 11:47 p.m. on March 14, 2015. Every night, her present self reconnects with that fragment and experiences those 90 seconds again. Yuki has tried everything. Sleeping pills don't prevent it. She experiences the loop while unconscious. Changing time zones doesn't help. Her body adjusts within days, always returning to 11:47 p.m. Tokyo time, no matter where she is. She's undergone hypnotherapy, experimental medications, even consulted spiritual healers. Nothing works. Is Yuki's body trapped in a biological prison? Or did some part of her never actually leave those train tracks? She doesn't know. All she knows is that every night, at the exact second she almost died, she dies again. 90 seconds of falling, of lights, of screaming brakes. Then she wakes up. Then she waits for tomorrow. But if a woman reliving her own accident every night is horrifying, the next case is something else entirely. A man who doesn't relive his death as a memory, he sees it as a premonition, every time he looks in a mirror, and the accident hasn't even happened yet. Imagine seeing your own death every time you looked in a mirror. Not a memory of something that happened, a vision of something that hasn't. The crash, the glass, the blood, the silence. Now, imagine experiencing that vision over 50,000 times across 16 years, and knowing that one day it might finally come true. This is the reality of Daniel Moreau, and his story will change the way you look at your own reflection. Daniel was a successful architect living in Paris. He had a beautiful apartment near the Seine, a loving wife, a young daughter who adored him. Life was good, normal, predictable, until the morning of September the 3rd, 2008, when everything shattered. Daniel was brushing his teeth, half awake, staring at his reflection in the bathroom mirror. Then he noticed something wrong. His reflection wasn't moving the way he was. Instead of mimicking his movements, it showed him sitting behind the wheel of a car. The car was spinning. Glass was exploding inward. His reflection's face was covered in blood. Daniel screamed and punched the mirror, shattering it with his bare fist. But when he stumbled to another mirror in the hallway, the same scene played out. The car, the impact, the death. For 16 years, Daniel has seen this vision in every reflective surface he encounters. Mirrors, windows, puddles, phone screens, polished metal. The accident plays on a loop lasting approximately 7 seconds. He sees himself behind the wheel of a silver sedan. A truck appears from the left, running a red light. The moment of impact, the windshield collapsing inward. His own face, frozen in terror, covered in shattered glass and blood. Then darkness. Then the reflection returns to normal, until he looks again. Neurologists who examined Daniel found something extraordinary. Brain scans during these episodes showed intense activity in regions associated with memory retrieval and future projection. But here's what disturbed them most. Daniel's brain processes these visions as memories, not imagination. According to his neural patterns, he is remembering something that hasn't occurred yet. His mind treats the accident as a past event, an event that, in our timeline, has never happened. Researchers developed 2 competing theories. The first is called pre-traumatic stress disorder, a rare condition where the brain manufactures detailed visions of anticipated death, which then become neurologically indistinguishable from genuine memories. The mind, overwhelmed by fear of mortality, creates the trauma before it happens. But others propose something far more disturbing. They believe time is not linear, and Daniel's consciousness is receiving what they call temporal echoes from a parallel timeline, a reality where the accident already occurred. In that timeline, Daniel Moreau died in a car crash, and somehow that death is bleeding through into our reality, projecting into reflective surfaces because of their symbolic connection to alternate selves. One physicist described it as mortality leakage, the gradual seepage of a death that exists somewhere in the fabric of time, haunting a version of Daniel who hasn't experienced it yet. Daniel no longer owns mirrors. He covered every reflective surface in his home with cloth or paint. He hasn't looked into his own eyes in years. His wife says he avoids windows after dark, when the glass becomes reflective. He walks with his head down past shop fronts. He keeps his phone screen brightness at maximum, so it never goes dark enough to show his face. But he still sees it sometimes, in unexpected places. A puddle on the sidewalk, someone's sunglasses, the polished surface of a doorknob, 7 seconds of his own death, playing on repeat, waiting for him everywhere. His wife says he whispers in his sleep, the same 2 words, over and over. It's coming. Is Daniel glimpsing a future he cannot escape? Is his death somehow already happening in another timeline, reaching backward through time to torture him in this one? Or will he spend his entire life watching himself die, only to pass away peacefully of old age, never knowing why he was shown something that never came? He doesn't know. No one does. All Daniel knows is that somewhere in every reflection, he's already dead. The next case hits even closer to the heart. A father who lost his daughter and now relives that moment every time he closes his eyes. Some believe she's trapped there too, waiting for him. On July 12, 1996, a 7-year-old girl named Emily Callahan vanished during her own birthday party. She was there one moment, laughing in the backyard, chasing a butterfly through the summer air. Gone the next. No trace, no body, no explanation. Her father, Robert, has been searching for answers ever since. And in 2003, he found something far worse than answers. He found a way back. Robert Callahan was a high school history teacher in Dayton, Ohio. His wife had died during childbirth, which meant Emily was his entire world. For her 7th birthday, he threw a backyard party with balloons, chocolate cake, and 6 of her closest friends. The home video from that day shows Emily spinning in her yellow dress, laughing at the camera, reaching for a butterfly that floated just beyond her fingertips. She chased it toward the garage, she ran around the corner, she never came back. Search teams combed the neighborhood for weeks. Police interviewed everyone. Dogs tracked her scent to the edge of the property, then lost it completely, as if Emily had simply stopped existing. No kidnapper, no accident, no evidence of anything. She was just gone. Robert spent 7 years searching, following every lead, chasing every rumor. Then he found the tape. In 2003, Robert was cleaning out the attic when he discovered the original VHS recording of Emily's birthday party. He hadn't watched it since she disappeared. That night, alone in his living room, he finally pressed play. He watched his daughter laugh and spin and run toward the garage. He watched her vanish from the frame. He fell asleep with the tape still playing, the static hissing in the darkness. When he woke up, he wasn't in his living room. He was standing in his backyard. July 12th, 1996. The sun was warm on his face. He could smell chocolate frosting and fresh-cut grass. Children's laughter surrounded him. And there was Emily, alive, spinning in her yellow dress, reaching for the butterfly. Robert tried to scream her name. He tried to run toward her, but he couldn't move. He couldn't speak. He could only watch as his daughter chased the butterfly around the corner of the garage and disappeared. Then everything went black. He woke up on his couch, the television static burning his eyes. The next night, the same dream, the same party, the same paralysis, the same vanishing. For 21 years now, Robert Callahan has relived his daughter's disappearance every single night. He experiences the party in perfect detail, the heat, the smells, the sounds, but he cannot change anything. He cannot reach her. He cannot save her. He can only watch Emily run toward the garage and vanish over and over, forever. Paranormal researchers who examined the VHS tape found something disturbing. The footage contained a 4-second segment that didn't appear on any other copy, a segment that shouldn't exist. It shows Emily turning around just before she disappears behind the garage. She looks directly at the camera, but she's not looking at past Robert, who was filming. Her eyes seem focused on something else, something beyond. Some researchers believe she's looking at future Robert, trapped in the loop, watching from somewhere outside time. The theory they developed is heartbreaking. They believe the tape became what they call a temporal anchor, an object so saturated with emotional energy that it created a permanent bridge between Robert and that moment. Every night, his consciousness travels back to July 12th, 1996. And some believe Emily is there too, frozen in the seconds before she vanished, somehow aware that her father keeps returning. Robert says the hardest part isn't the repetition. It's that sometimes, in the dream, Emily almost turns around, almost sees him, almost stops running, like she knows he's there, like she's waiting for him to finally reach her. Is Robert's grief keeping him trapped, or is Emily truly there, suspended in that moment, hoping her father will someday break through? He doesn't know. He just keeps going back, every night, watching her disappear, hoping this time will be different. Only 23% of viewers are subscribed. If these cases are pulling you in, hit subscribe now. You won't want to miss what's coming next. The next case is something else entirely. A surgeon whose hands perform a failed operation every night, whether she wants them to or not. What if your own hands betrayed you every night? What if they moved without your permission, performing actions you desperately wanted to forget? Dr. Amara Ose knows this horror intimately. She was one of London's most respected cardiothoracic surgeons until October 17, 2012, when a routine operation went catastrophically wrong. The patient died on her table. Now, every night at exactly 3:33 a.m., her hands perform that surgery again, whether she's awake or asleep, whether she wants them to or not. Dr. Oze had performed over 2,000 successful surgeries throughout her career. She was precise, calm under pressure, brilliant in the operating room. Colleagues called her the steadiest hands in London. On October 17, 2012, she was operating on a 34-year-old father named Thomas Webb. It was supposed to be straightforward, a valve replacement she'd done hundreds of times before. Everything proceeded normally until 3:33 a.m., when the monitors suddenly flatlined. A massive hemorrhage, completely unexpected. Dr. Ose did everything right. She followed every protocol, but nothing worked. Thomas Webb died on her table at 3:47 a.m., his eyes open, looking directly at her face. She saw the exact moment the life left his body. She never forgot that look. Dr. Ozzy took a leave of absence. She started therapy. She told herself she would heal. Then her hands started moving on their own. 3 months after the surgery, Dr. Ozzy woke at exactly 3:33 a.m. with her hands raised above her chest. Her fingers were moving in precise surgical patterns, cutting, clamping, suturing. She wasn't dreaming. She was fully awake, fully conscious, watching her own hands operate on invisible tissue. The episode lasted exactly 47 minutes, the exact duration of Thomas Webb's surgery. Her husband filmed it. Her movements were identical to the surgical footage from that night, frame by frame. Every night since then, at exactly 3:33 a.m., Dr. Osei's hands performed the operation that killed Thomas Webb. Sleep studies confirmed something that shouldn't be possible. During these episodes, her brain activity matches the neurological readings recorded during the actual surgery 12 years ago. Her mind genuinely believes it's back in that operating room, desperately trying to save a patient who's been dead for over a decade. Neurologists proposed a theory called motor memory trauma, the idea that her hands retain the muscle memory so deeply that they replay it involuntarily. But this doesn't explain why it happens at exactly 3:33 a.m., the precise moment Thomas Webb's heart stopped. Not 3:32, not 3:34. The exact minute, every single night. A temporal researcher proposed something more disturbing. He believes Dr. Osei's consciousness became knotted at the moment of her patient's death. The extreme guilt and trauma created a feedback loop, anchoring her permanently to that moment in time. Her hands aren't just remembering the surgery. They're still performing it, trapped in a moment that her subconscious refuses to let end. Some theorists believe Thomas Webb himself is involved. They suggest that at the moment he died, his final desperate thought, "Save me," imprinted onto Dr. Ozzy's mind. Now her hands try to answer that call every night, attempting to complete a surgery that failed 12 years ago. Dr. Ozzy no longer practices medicine. She can't. How could she operate on patients when her hands might suddenly start moving on their own? She lives quietly now, alone, dreading every night. She says she can feel Thomas Webb's heart in her hands at 3:33 a.m. She feels the moment it stops beating. She feels his blood between her fingers. She feels his eyes on her face. And then it starts over. Is Dr. Ozzy's guilt manifesting physically through her body? Or is some fragment of that surgery still happening, playing out in a loop that exists somewhere between life and death? She doesn't know. She just knows that every night, at the exact moment Thomas Webb died, her hands try to save him one more time, and every night, they fail. The next case takes us somewhere even more isolated. A lighthouse on a remote Swedish island, a storm that never ends, and a keeper who may still be trapped inside it. Some say his wife is there too, waiting, drowning, forever. Some loops don't end when the person who created them dies. Some loops become part of a place itself, burned into the stone, the wind, the water. Henrik Lindqvist was a lighthouse keeper on a remote Swedish island. In 1987, his wife Maya drowned in a storm while trying to reach him. Henrik spent 16 years reliving that night before he finally passed away. But locals say the loop didn't stop with his death. They say Henrik is still there, still watching, still waiting for a wife who will never arrive. Henrik took the position at Åland Lighthouse in 1972. He loved the isolation, the rhythm of the rotating beam, the endless expanse of gray sea stretching toward the horizon. In 1985, he married Maya, a woman from the mainland who visited him every 2 weeks, making the ferry crossing regardless of weather. She said she'd rather face any storm than spend another day without him. On November 23, 1987, the worst storm in decades struck the Swedish coast. Maya was on the evening ferry, crossing to surprise Henrik for their anniversary. Henrik watched from the lighthouse tower as the waves grew monstrous. He saw the ferry's lights flickering in the distance. He saw it capsize. He heard Maya's voice on the emergency radio, 3 words before the signal cut out. "I see you." Maya drowned within sight of the lighthouse. Henrik watched the woman he loved die in the churning water below, helpless to save her. Rescue boats recovered her body 2 days later. Henrik never left the lighthouse again. In the years that followed, visitors reported something strange. On stormy nights they heard Henrik calling out, screaming Maya's name into the wind, warning her about the waves. Some heard two voices, Henrik's desperate shouts and a woman's faint reply, barely audible above the gale. Fishermen passing at night reported seeing two figures in the lighthouse windows during storms, Henrik and someone else, walking together through the sweeping beam of light. Henrik himself, in rare moments of clarity, told authorities he was still there. He said every storm brought him back to November 23, 1987. He could see Maya's ferry struggling against the waves. He could hear her calling to him across the water. He would run down to the dock, reaching toward her, and fail. Then the storm would clear, and he would wake in his bed, alone. This cycle repeated for 16 years, hundreds of times. In 2003, Henrik died of natural causes in the lighthouse, but locals insist the loop didn't end with him. In 2007, paranormal researchers spent a night at the lighthouse during a storm. Their equipment recorded two distinct voices, one matching archival recordings of Henrik, the other an unknown woman. Temperature readings showed a 15-degree drop in the tower at exactly 11:47 p.m., the documented time of the ferry's capsizing. Electromagnetic sensors detected massive anomalies concentrated around the windows facing the sea. One researcher proposed that Henrik's grief was so powerful, his loop became embedded in the location itself. He experienced the trauma so many times that he wore a groove into time, a permanent scar in reality at that exact spot. When he died, his consciousness didn't leave. It stayed in the loop, still trying to save Maya, still watching her drown, forever. The lighthouse was decommissioned in 2015, but locals still avoid it during storms. Fishermen report lights in the tower that shouldn't exist. Some have heard screaming carried on the wind. A maintenance worker in 2019 swore he saw a man and woman standing at the dock in the rain, holding hands. When he called out, they vanished. Is Henrik still reliving November 23, 1987? Is Maya still drowning, reaching for a husband who will never reach her in time? The lighthouse stands empty now, but on stormy nights, something is still there, still watching the waves, still calling out across the water, still trapped. These cases are only getting more intense. If you're not subscribed yet, now's the time. The next one involves something that was never supposed to exist. A television broadcast. A mother learning her son was dead. Live on air. She's been reading that script every day since. What if your worst moment wasn't just witnessed by your family or friends? What if it was broadcast to millions of strangers, played on screens across an entire city, recorded and archived forever? Catherine Wells knows this nightmare. On March 3, 1999, the beloved Chicago news anchor read a breaking news report about a factory explosion. She didn't know her 19-year-old son worked there. She didn't know he was already dead. She found out live on television, and she's been reading that script every single day since. Catherine Wells was a trusted voice in Chicago for over 15 years. Professional, warm, composed under pressure. Viewers invited her into their homes every evening at 6. Her son Michael had recently started a job at Hartfield Chemical Plant, working the night shift to save money for college. Catherine was proud of him. She told her colleagues he was becoming a man. On March 3, 1999, at exactly 6:12 p.m., a producer handed Catherine a breaking news bulletin. Factory explosion. Multiple casualties. She read the copy professionally, her voice steady, her expression appropriately serious. Then the graphic appeared on screen. Hartfield Chemical. Catherine's face flickered, just for a moment, but she kept reading. The casualty list began scrolling across the bottom of the screen. She saw his name. Michael Wells, age 19. The footage of that moment became infamous. You can still find it online. Catherine's voice trails off mid-sentence. Her eyes widen. Her mouth opens slightly, but no sound comes out. She stares at the teleprompter, frozen, as the list continues scrolling. Then the broadcast cuts to commercial. Catherine never returned to the air that night. She never returned to the air again. 2 weeks later, she tried to come back to work. That's when her colleagues noticed something terrifying. Every day at 6:12 p.m., Catherine would stop whatever she was doing, sit down in the nearest chair, and begin reading. Not random words, the exact script from March 3rd, 1999, word for word. Pause for pause. Her eyes would track an invisible teleprompter. Her voice would maintain perfect anchor cadence. Then she would reach Michael's name, her face would freeze, and she would stop. The episode would end. She would have no memory of it. Colleagues recorded these episodes over the following months. Voice analysis confirmed she was reciting the original broadcast verbatim, including pauses for graphics that no longer existed. Her timing matched the archive footage to within half a second. Brain scans revealed something impossible. At 6:12 p.m., Catherine's neural activity shifted to patterns from 1999. Her present self vanished. The 1999 Catherine took over. She read the news. She learned her son was dead. Then she returned, confused, with no memory of the previous 4 minutes. Psychologists initially diagnosed dissociative episodes triggered by trauma, but the precision troubled researchers. Catherine doesn't paraphrase, she recites. Her timing is exact. One temporal theorist proposed that Catherine's consciousness fractured at 6:12 p.m. on March 3, 1999. Part of her moved forward through time. Part of her stayed behind, stuck in that moment, reading that script forever. Every day at 6:12, her present consciousness briefly reconnects with her past self. And for 4 minutes, Catherine Wells is back at that anchor desk, learning her son is dead for the first time. Catherine retired in 2004. She lives in a care facility now, her memory fragmented by age. But every day at 6:12 p.m., she sits upright, faces forward and reads. Staff have learned not to interrupt. They just watch as this elderly woman becomes a news anchor again, delivering a bulletin that destroyed her life 25 years ago. Is Catherine's mind stuck in an endless loop of grief? Or is some version of her still sitting at that anchor desk in 1999, reading her son's name over and over, forever waiting for the broadcast to finally end? She doesn't know. She just reads, every day, at exactly 6:12 p.m. The next case is different. It's not an accident or a tragedy. It's an experiment. A man who volunteered to test time technology and discovered that some doors should never be opened. In 1982, somewhere in the Soviet Union, a laboratory conducted an experiment that was never supposed to exist. The documents were classified, buried, supposedly destroyed, but fragments surfaced in 2004, revealing a horror that defies comprehension. A young man named Alexei Petrov volunteered for what he was told would be simple medical testing. He was healthy, 28 years old, with no family to miss him if something went wrong. The experiment lasted 4 minutes and 17 seconds. Alexei has been living those 4 minutes ever since. He's never stopped screaming. The partially redacted documents described a project codenamed Вечность, Eternity. Soviet scientists were researching what they called temporal perception manipulation. The goal was military. Teach soldiers to experience time differently, compressing hours of training into minutes of subjective experience. If successful, it would create the most elite fighting force in history. They needed test subjects. Alexei Petrov was subject 7. He was a factory worker from Minsk. No criminal record, no family connections, no one who would ask questions if he disappeared. Recruiters offered him 5 years' wages for participating in medical research. He signed the consent form on March 14, 1982. He never signed anything again. According to the documents, Alexei was placed inside a chamber filled with electromagnetic equipment. Electrodes were attached to his skull. An unknown compound was injected into his bloodstream. The experiment began at exactly 9 a.m. At 9:04 and 17 seconds, something went catastrophically wrong. Monitors showed Alexei's brain activity spiking beyond measurable levels. He began screaming, a sound one researcher described as inhuman. He screamed for exactly 4 minutes and 17 seconds. Then he stopped. Then he screamed again. The same scream, the same duration, the same pattern, over and over. When researchers finally entered the chamber, Alexei was physically unharmed but completely unresponsive to external stimuli. His eyes were open, moving frantically, watching something no one else could see. Brain scans revealed impossible readings. His mind was experiencing the same 4-minute, 17-second window on continuous repeat. He wasn't remembering it. He was living it. The experiment had trapped his consciousness in a loop, and 42 years later, he's still there. Alexei has been institutionalized since 1982. He still screams for exactly 4 minutes and 17 seconds. Then he goes silent for a few seconds. Then he screams again. Staff members have documented this pattern thousands of times. It never varies. It never stops. The Soviet documents suggested that the experiment accidentally unmoored Alexei's consciousness from linear time. Instead of experiencing seconds sequentially, his mind became trapped in a standing wave, a single moment stretched into eternity. His body ages. His brain deteriorates. But his subjective experience never advances beyond those 257 seconds. Researchers who later analyzed the case made a horrifying calculation. If Alexei has been experiencing the same 4 minutes and 17 seconds continuously since 1982, he has endured over 8 million years of subjective time. 8 million years trapped in a Soviet laboratory. 8 million years of whatever he saw in that chamber. 8 million years of screaming. The horror of this case isn't that Alexei is reliving a moment. It's that for him, the moment never ended. He's still in that chamber. He's been there for 8 million years, and he cannot get out. Alexei Petrov is reportedly still alive, housed in a facility outside Moscow. He's 70 years old now. He doesn't recognize anyone. He doesn't respond to his name. He doesn't react to touch or sound or light. He just screams for 4 minutes and 17 seconds, rests, then screams again. Staff say his eyes are the worst part. They move constantly, tracking something invisible, watching the same event unfold over and over. What did Alexei see in that chamber? What does he see now, 42 years later? Is he trapped in a moment of unimaginable pain? Or did the experiment show him something worse, something he's been watching for 8 million years with no way to look away? The next case involves something even stranger. 2 sisters connected by a bond that transcends time itself. One had the accident, the other relives it. They share a moment that happened to both of them. Can one person's trauma trap another? Can a moment of death reach across distance and pull someone else inside? Maria and Sofia Reyes were identical twins born in Buenos Aires, Argentina in 1985. On February 14, 2007, Maria was killed in a car accident. Sofia was 30 kilometers away when it happened, but Sofia felt everything: the impact, the shattering glass, the moment her sister's heart stopped beating. She's felt it every single day since. For 17 years, Sofia has been dying with her twin. Maria and Sofia shared a connection that went beyond ordinary siblings. Even as children, they finished each other's sentences, dreamed the same dreams, felt each other's pain during minor injuries. Scientists studied them in their teenage years, documenting their unusual synchronicity. When Maria broke her arm at 16, Sofia developed bruising in the same location without any injury. Doctors couldn't explain it. The twins simply accepted it as part of who they were. By 22, they lived in different parts of Buenos Aires, Maria in the north, Sofia in the south. They spoke every day but had built separate lives. On February 14, 2007, at 3:47 p.m., Maria was driving home from work when a truck ran a red light. The collision was catastrophic. Maria was pronounced dead at 3:52 p.m. At exactly 3:47 p.m., 30 kilometers away, Sofia collapsed in her kitchen. Her roommate found her on the floor, screaming about broken glass and a steering wheel crushing her chest. She wasn't having a nightmare. She was awake, experiencing something that was happening to someone else entirely. Sofia was rushed to the hospital with no visible injuries, yet displaying symptoms of severe physical trauma. Her vital signs matched what Maria's had been at the moment of impact. When doctors told her Maria was dead, Sofia simply said, "I know. I was there." She described the accident in perfect detail: the color of the truck, the song playing on the radio, the angle of the sun through the windshield, the feeling of her ribs breaking against the steering wheel. She knew things she couldn't possibly have known. Since that day, Sofia relives Maria's death every afternoon at 3:47 p.m. Her body goes rigid. She can't breathe. She feels the impact. She feels her heart stop. Then, at 3:52 p.m., the exact time Maria was pronounced dead, Sofia gasps back to life. 5 minutes of dying, every single day, for 17 years. Brain scans during these episodes revealed something that shouldn't be possible. Sofia's neural patterns match Maria's at the moment of death, patterns that were recorded in the hospital during Maria's final moments. Sophia's brain doesn't just remember Maria's death. It experiences it, as if she were the one behind the wheel. Researchers developed a theory they call traumatic temporal entanglement. They believe twins, especially identical twins with documented psychic links, can share more than thoughts. In moments of extreme trauma, their consciousnesses can literally merge across space. When Maria died, the moment was so powerful that it imprinted on Sophia's mind, not as a memory, but as a lived experience. Sophia didn't just feel Maria's death. She was there. Some propose something even more disturbing. They believe Maria's consciousness, at the moment of death, reached out to the only person connected enough to receive it. In trying to survive, Maria accidentally trapped part of herself inside Sophia. Now Sophia carries that fragment, and every day at 3:47 p.m., she dies alongside her sister. Sophia still lives in Buenos Aires. She no longer makes plans for late afternoon. She just sits and waits for it to happen. She says the strangest part isn't the pain or the fear. It's that sometimes, during the episode, she feels Maria. Not as a memory, as a presence. Like Maria is still there, still dying, still reaching out across whatever separates the living from the dead. Is Sophia reliving a trauma? Or is she somehow keeping her sister alive? Both of them trapped in the moment between life and death, experiencing it together, forever? Sophia doesn't know. She just knows that every day for 5 minutes, she's not alone. The final case is the most disturbing of all. A boy who died in 1952. A fire that consumed him. Parents who watched their son burn, not once, but every night for the rest of their lives. This final case is the most disturbing we've ever covered. It's not about someone reliving their own trauma. It's about a child who may have been trapped in the moment of his death for over 70 years, and the parents who watched him die thousands of times before they themselves passed away. Some say Tommy Archer is still there, still burning, still pressing his hands against the glass, still waiting for someone to save him. The Archer family lived in a stone cottage on the outskirts of Whitby, England. William was a fisherman. Margaret kept the home. Their only child, Tommy, was a bright 9-year-old who loved building model trains and chasing seagulls along the cliffs. He was their entire world. On December 18th, 1952, a fire broke out in Tommy's bedroom while his parents were downstairs preparing dinner. By the time they smelled smoke, the second floor was already engulfed. They ran outside, hoping to reach him through the window. What they saw destroyed them. Tommy appeared at his bedroom window, his small hands pressed flat against the glass. His mouth was open, screaming words they couldn't hear through the roaring flames. Margaret screamed his name. William tried to climb the wall, but the fire was too fast, too hungry. They watched their son burn alive, his palms still pressed against the window, his eyes locked on theirs. The fire department arrived too late. Tommy's body was never recovered from the ashes. William and Margaret refused to leave the cottage. Neighbors thought it was grief, but the Archers had a different reason. 3 nights after the fire, at exactly 11:23 p.m., the documented time of Tommy's death, Margaret looked up at the rebuilt window and screamed. Tommy was there, hands pressed against the glass, mouth open in a silent scream, flames flickering behind him. She watched her son burn again. Then the window went dark. The next night, he appeared again. Same position, same flames. Same desperate eyes searching for parents who couldn't reach him. For 40 years, until their deaths in the 1990s, William and Margaret Archer witnessed their son's death every single night. They documented everything, journals filled with identical descriptions, photographs showing strange light anomalies in the window, audio recordings capturing sounds from Tommy's room that shouldn't exist. They told authorities, doctors, priests. No one believed them. But they knew what they saw. Their boy was trapped. Margaret wrote in her final journal entry, "He sees us. Every night he sees us, and every night we cannot save him." After the Archers died, the cottage was sold. The new owners reported nothing unusual until December 18th, 1999. That night, at 11:23 p.m., they saw a boy in the second-floor window, hands pressed against the glass, mouth frozen in a scream, illuminated by flames that weren't there. Paranormal researchers who investigated the cottage developed a devastating theory. They believed Tommy's death was so traumatic, so filled with terror and desperate hope, that his consciousness became trapped at that exact moment. He's not haunting the house. He's reliving his death. Every night at 11:23 p.m., Tommy Archer experiences his final moments again. He sees the flames. He runs to the window. He presses his hands against the glass. He searches for his parents, and he burns. Then it resets. Then it happens again. The Whitby cottage still stands today. It's been through multiple owners, most of whom sell within a year. Some report nothing, others report everything. The most recent sighting was December 18th, 2023. A delivery driver taking a shortcut saw a boy in the second-floor window, hands pressed flat against the glass, mouth open, face illuminated by flickering orange light. He called the police. They found an empty house. Is Tommy Archer still there? Still burning? Still waiting for someone to finally break through that window and save him? His parents watched him die over 14,000 times. They went to their graves hoping someone would eventually reach him, and somewhere in that cottage, a boy who died in 1952 might still be dying tonight, pressing his hands against the glass, searching for a rescue that never comes. Some loops never end. Some children never stop burning. 10 survivors, 10 loops, 10 moments that refuse to end. Some trapped by accident, others by experiment, others by grief so heavy it bent the fabric of time itself. Are these stories real? Are these people truly stuck, reliving their worst moments forever? Or is this just what happens when trauma becomes so powerful that time itself breaks? Subscribe now and join us, because the next video might make you question everything you think you know. What would you do if your worst moment never ended?